Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed your lunch and had a chance to watch Hidden Wild. If you haven't gotten a chance to see it, it will be on demand and it's available on YouTube. This afternoon, we have a few concurrent sessions. Before getting to those, we will be kicking it off with a keynote address from Region Administrator Daniel Blackman with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Region 4. Regional Administrator Blackman has dedicated his career to creating economic opportunities for marginalized communities throughout the South, specifically in building more resilient communities with equitable economic opportunity, greater access to education, and a healthy environment for all, not just for a select few. Thank you so much for joining us today, Regional Administrator.
Hey, everybody. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for allowing our region to participate in this event. I am 2 weeks in, but I'm very much looking forward to this conversation, to each of you participating, and to moving forward in the new year on the right foot and being participatory in this conference. So again, good afternoon. Couldn't be more pleased to be here to join you all today, as this is my first external opportunity to share remarks and to be here with you. I'm eager for the opportunities that lie before us in our region and every single opportunity that each of the participants bring in the coming weeks, in the coming months, and over the next year. Our region, of course, includes the beautiful state of Florida. While we have so many opportunities in this area, it would mean a lot for me to also acknowledge the fact that there are other states and 6 tribes that are included in this region. And on behalf of the President of the United States, President Joe Biden, Administrator Regan, and our entire staff, our team, and all those who make my job, which is complicated, they make it look very easy. I want to thank those individuals for being here, and I want to thank all of you. EPA's Region 4's corner of the country faces a unique urgency, given our long coastlines along the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, our region faces the highest frequency of major disasters of any other EPA region, with major hurricanes in so many of the areas, but more than 36 EPA emergency responses over the last 20 years to those hurricanes, as well as flooding and tornadoes that have happened more frequently than many of us would like to see, especially those who are impacted the most. I came into this position with a passion and a drive to achieve results, and knowing that this is a critical time in our nation's history where we have a unique window of opportunity, which I'm sure all of you are here for. This is an opportunity to address the urgent work ahead of us, and certainly not the least of which is addressing climate change. I also want to take a point of reference before I start to thank all those who spoke before me in leadership positions, including those who are working with the administration from out of DC. Now, I know you all heard from Brenda Mallory, one of those individuals, the chair of the White House's Center of Environmental Quality, earlier this morning. And as I'm sure you've heard from her, it's also important to emphasize again that President Biden's administration is taking a whole of government approach to tackle the climate crisis. On day one, President Biden rejoined the Paris Agreement, which I was very happy to hear. He restored U.S. leadership on the world stage and reestablished our position to tackle the climate crisis both at home and abroad. Days later, he took his executive actions to ensure we tackle the climate crisis at home and abroad while creating jobs and growing our economy. And since that day and every day since, he has taken decisive action to reduce emissions, advance environmental justice, and create good paying union jobs throughout this region and across the country. That's what the American people deserve, and EPA is certainly going to do its part to deliver once again. We want to reach people in every corner of the country because there is no small town, big city, or rural community that is unaffected by the climate crisis, which is certainly the case in the great state of Florida. Now, it's also important that we cover the fact that nowhere is this more acutely felt, primarily, than in South Florida. Americans are seeing and feeling the impacts up close with increasing regularity across the American West. They've seen wildfires that have forced tens of thousands of people to evacuate, and their homes have been scorched, an area roughly the size of New Jersey. Gulf and East Coast experienced record-shattering hurricane season last year alone. And in the heartland, historic floods, windstorms, and droughts have devastated farming communities. Knowing this, being here in the state of Georgia, I know that the administrator appreciates me being here and myself being in Georgia, but having an administrator and regional administrator from Region 4, we understand this very clearly. At the same time, our communities of color, the same communities struggling under the weight of the pandemic, are hardest hit by impacts of climate change and unjust reality we are now committed to changing and very much focused on. Tidal flooding is also becoming more frequent along the U.S. coastline, with a rate increase accelerating at most locations along the East and the Gulf Coast. Now, when I hear statistics like these, like many of you, I think about the more than 8.6 million Americans like you who live in areas susceptible to coastal flooding and the potential impacts on each of their livelihoods. I think about the more than $1 trillion of property and infrastructure that's within only a few feet of current sea level. I think about the future of my children and all children, whether they're yours or they're your neighbors, and what they will inherit. As a matter of fact, there's a Native American proverb that says, we do not inherit the planet from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And that couldn't be more true than we are today. I also think about the tremendous economic opportunity that we have right now for taking ambitious action on climate. And this pursuit that we have is why President Biden has made confronting the climate crisis a top priority for his administration, but also Administrator Regan and myself are in full pursuit of this necessary goal. The president understands that we need to take urgent action to address this crisis head on, to protect Americans' health and safety, and to reap the benefits that come with the action that this administration, our region, and all of you are taking. When the president hears climate, he hears jobs. This includes good paying union jobs in every community across America. We can put people to work building modern, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure, re-energizing our power sector, spurring electric vehicle manufacturing, and mobilizing the next generation of conservation and resilience workers. This can also be in alignment with preventing recidivism in Florida by giving people the second chance that they so desperately deserve. We can also deliver climate justice for Black, Latinx, and Indigenous communities across Florida and throughout our region, including low-income communities who've long borne the burden of pollution. We can fundamentally make people's lives better by confronting the climate crisis head on. And that's what drives us at EPA, and that's what we are laser focused in this region on doing. At this point, I want to share some of the things that EPA is doing. At EPA, we're rebuilding or redoubling on our efforts under President Biden's leadership to work with our stakeholders to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through both regulatory and voluntary practices. We are also prioritizing our work with the communities to do business to help them assess their vulnerabilities, which I'll get into a little later, and implement strategies to adapt both resilience and action to changing the climate. In particular, we're committed to doing this work in communities that have been historically marginalized, overburdened, underserved, and living with the legacy of structural racism. I know that this is right in line and focus with your summit today, so we are really looking forward to learning from you and supporting you wherever we can. At EPA Region 4, one of the key efforts that we're working on in the region is to dust off and update Obama-era Regional Climate Adaptation Implementation Plan, which is very important for us to do. I want to really thank the Compact for its superb leadership over many years now in helping Southeast Florida prepare for and respond to the impacts of climate change now and going forward. As we update our Region 4 specific adaptation plan, we will definitely be reaching out to you to learn from your extensive experience with adaptation planning, what has worked out well, what problems you've come up against, and how you've solved them. This information will be critical to me, to our administrator, to our staff, but to the entirety of our region. We are also gearing up to manage any new resources that come to or through us and the various new legislation coming out of Congress, which has a climate component. Each of our divisions at Region 4 also has their own unique role to play as a result to responding to the climate crisis. We're actively engaged in increasing our efforts in various themes of work, such as regulation, development, resiliency, and recovery. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of those things that we're doing within the region and within our administration. In our air program, we have a key role to play in the area of greenhouse gas emissions reduction. Among the many climate-related activities that exist, our air program currently is working on, they're tasked with helping to develop and implement various Clean Air Act rules that focus on getting meaningful reductions of greenhouse gases from some of the largest and most important emission sources. For example, the Biden administration proposed new rules last month that would sharply reduce methane and other harmful air pollution from both new and existing sources in the oil and gas industry. Region 4 will be responsible for not only reviewing state plans submitted under these rules, but taking action. As an aside, our work on methane doesn't stop with the new rules. We're also promoting a variety of voluntary approaches that methane sources can implement and maybe even generate some revenue. And I'd like to give you a couple examples of those. For example, our AgStar program helps farmers collect methane from manure and turn it into useful fuel. Our landfill methane outreach program, likewise, helps landfill owners collect landfill gas and either destroy it or use it to make energy. In August, EPA proposed a revision to the existing national greenhouse gas emission standards for passenger cars and light-duty trucks. These are from model years 2023 to 2026. And I'm proud to say today that this rulemaking effort was informed by our experts on the mobile source team right here in Region 4. Making cars cleaner is critical to addressing climate change. Transportation, the single largest source of GHG emissions in the United States, makes up 29% of emissions. Within the transportation sector, passenger cars and trucks are the largest contributors at 58%. Knowing this and all the transportation that's impacted, these sources, 17% of this is contributed to GHG emissions. EPA published a proposed rule on August 10th of this year to reduce GHG emissions from light-duty vehicles. The proposed rule would save American drivers between $120 to $250 billion by 2050. This proposal would result in 2.2 billion tons of avoided carbon emissions through 2050. And our water program, which I'm very excited about, our efforts with water are near and dear to me, as I am the son of immigrants from Barbados. Knowing this, the climate resiliency of the Caribbean and coastal areas such as South Florida are especially important to me. EPA provides not only guidance, but also funding in many areas to help address and mitigate the effects and the impacts of climate change. Resources right now are being leveraged throughout the state of Florida as the water management districts, state and local governments partner to combat not only flood, but drought and sea level rising amongst the effects and the impacts of climate change. They do so as they effectively balance their limited water resources, growing population by implementing encouraging water reuse, beneficial use of wetlands, and aquifer storage and recovery. Now, while we hear all these things, these help communities meet future water demands and develop reliable, sustainable water sources. Under EPA's State Revolving Loan Program, or our SRF, the state of Florida is leveraging millions of dollars to help build more resilient water systems, many of these in disadvantaged communities, by offering loan principal forgiveness. I'd also like to highlight the WIFIA program, where EPA administers a federal credit program for eligible water and wastewater infrastructure projects. The WIFIA program can fund a spectrum of projects from desalination, mitigation activities, and so much more. As a local example to South Florida, EPA recently announced, get this, 424 million WIFIA loan in WIFIA loans to the Miami-Dade and water sewer. EPA's fourth WIFIA loan to Miami-Dade County will help finance upgrades that will eliminate the use of ocean outfalls and increase the system's resiliency to extreme weather events. The project will also increase the system's climate resilience by monitoring facilities that can better withstand extreme weather events. And I know for many of you that are on here, that's extremely critical. However, EPA also provides funding for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection at our NENPS program, which stands for Non-Point Source. And this supports climate activities such as green infrastructure and low impact development priorities. Finally, in our water program, EPA's South Florida project strongly supports the protection and restoration of coral reefs, wetlands, seagrass communities, and all coastal habitat features to improve ecosystem resiliency in South Florida. These highly threatened nature-based ecosystems protect water quality and reduce storm surge, flooding, and beach erosion, while providing the foundations for Florida's ecotourism-based economy, which I am wholeheartedly and fully committed in this region to protecting. And in 2022, EPA will prioritize the protections and restorations of these natural systems as a funding priority for EPA's South Florida program. One more, in our land programs, we prioritize recovery and land cleanup activities as we respond and ready ourselves for future climate impacts. Recovery work occurs post-disaster, which EPA carries out under the National Disaster Recovery Framework. And it is a process that can last for years and focuses on long-term, not short-term, but long-term restoration of places and communities affected by the disaster. This is not new for us. EPA has been playing an active role in promoting ecological resilience and disaster recovery. Our region has been engaged in post-Hurricane Michael with 6 Florida Panhandle communities to improve their future resilience to stormwater impacts while enhancing the local and rural and also recreational economies. As an example, design improvements including repurposing our large brownfields property into a wetland park, which help to manage the impacts of flooding and simultaneously increase ecotourism opportunities. Not only that, but under our Superfund program, Region 4 has successfully returned 62 sites to the state of Florida. And at the Petroleum Products Corporation, the Superfund site in Broward County, Region 4 is in the process of negotiating a consent decree for an estimated $57.1 million cleanup of the site, which includes communities with some environmental justice concerns, which myself and Administrator Regan are not only involved with, but will take action on. This site overlies the Biscayne Aquifer, roughly 3 miles west of the Atlantic Ocean, and the site sits just several feet above the water table and has potential vulnerabilities to hurricanes, sea level rise, and salination of the groundwater. As such, the remedy has been designed to create and to be resilient to climate change impacts from stronger storms and saltwater intrusion. I want to thank President Biden again and his administration for their climate leadership. I want to thank Administrator Regan for his work and for entrusting me in this role and position. I want to thank all of you. Thank you for the invitation to provide the keynote to today concerning EPA's effort to address climate change. From the region and EPA, I want to reassure you that all of what we're doing is going to be considered, but the EPA is back. We're back at the table concerning climate change. We're back to being accountable. And we want to earn your trust and your respect throughout this region as we work closer with each and every one of you, as we value our great partnerships on the front line of this vital work, in particular to the South Florida Regional Climate Change Compact. Thank you for this opportunity to address you all. Please feel free to engage us as we will look forward to working together on a sense of urgency on each and every one of these critical issues, from climate change to environmental justice to climate resilience. Thank you all for your time. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Regional Administrator Blackman. It's great to hear that the climate crisis and climate justice are being addressed at the national level so robustly. We also feel very lucky that we got on your schedule 2 weeks into your new role. So thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Next, we will begin our afternoon concurrent sessions. They have not started yet, so you are welcome to click over and join. You can choose between 2 options: making the investment, innovations in valuing and funding resiliency projects, or greening the coast for resilience. Enjoy the next 2 sessions.